Today on the Nikki Jencen Show, we're diving in with Brandi Davis, a child and family coach who is showing us parents the way to handle homework stress. It's all coming up right now.
Child and family coach Brandi Davis sent me a tweet when we saw this about Gwyneth Paltrow.
I did.
You know, almost every parent out there could relate to what she's talking about. You lose your cool.
Yes, you do, and it's every day too. So
especially at night when they're doing their homework.
Yeah.
So let me give you 4 scenarios. Hey, thanks kids for coming in. We'll explain why mom is there in just a second. Let's start right here.
Yes.
With the first question. Now I know what this little girl is up to. All right. She can't sit still. You know what I mean? She's constantly getting, oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I need a pencil. Oh, where's my book? So what do we do?
Exactly. So you want to have everything right there for them. All of their homework, have a snack, have the water, have a stapler, have extra pens, extra pencils. So there's no need for them to get up at all.
So no excuses?
No excuses.
So you even have a snack there?
I do have a snack there.
What is that in that bag?
It's pretzels.
Okay, in case she gets a little hungry.
In case she gets a little hungry, you don't have to say, oh, I'm so hungry, I want to get up, and I want to go get something, making 10 minutes into 35 minutes.
And she may not even be hungry. It's just a way to get out of doing the homework.
Right, exactly.
That's brilliant. Okay, this guy right here, he's all over the map. He wants to do his homework before dinner, just after dinner. When he gets home from school, what do we do?
So some kids like to do their homework as soon as they get home, and some kids like to play a little while, and it really depends on the child, and some kids can play and then jump into it. So Jameson here, she can play a little while, but then when it's time to do homework, it's time to do homework. She can jump right in and do her homework.
She's adorable, by the way.
Yes. And I think it's really important to talk with your kids and ask them, you know, when do you think it's best to do your homework? Do you want to play a little bit before? And have them be in control of sort of the situation.
Okay. Let's move along. He just doesn't want to do anything.
He doesn't.
I refuse to do the homework.
Yes.
Look at that face.
I know. He's serious about it. So the first thing you want to do is ask why. What's going on? Maybe he doesn't understand the subject and he just doesn't know how to tell you. But then you want to describe, like, hey, the ball's in your court, buddy. This is your job. You have to do your homework before you do the fun things. So I want you to be able to come to family movie night or go out and play with your friends. But we can't do that until you do your homework. It's your responsibility. And
we told him to act like he didn't want to do his homework. So he's
like, "Urgh." There's one more great thing that you can do if your kid doesn't do their homework.
What?
Send them to school with the homework undone.
And reap the consequences.
Yes, and as a teacher, I'm going to tell you, we love that. Real life consequences.
Okay,
Yep.
Let's get into this last scenario here. This is, I'm so frustrated as a parent, I'm going to do the homework myself. As the mom, that actually is her daughter.
Yes.
Who do we have? That's your sister?
That's my sister, Corey.
And the daughter's name?
Chloe.
Hey, Chloe. So, this happens.
It does happen, and maybe a parent's just tired of all the whining, or maybe they feel like, oh, well, if I just do these last 2 problems, they'll actually get 100. But the problem is, if you're doing their homework, they're going to learn that whining gets them what they want.
Let's see what actually you're trying to answer. What's the question?
Let's see.
Who said it?
Well, what if mom doesn't know how to answer
I
the
know.
questions too?
They're also going to not get a chance to show the teacher what they know and what they don't know.
Okay.
And are you really going to follow them to, you know, college and job interviews and everything else and do these things for them? It's really their responsibility. And if you're jumping in saying, I can do it better, then that can really hurt their self-esteem.
Where can you find more tips like this?
You can
Are there
find
websites?
There are definitely websites. You know, homework help. Just Google. You know, how can I get my kid to do their homework?
Yeah.
You can go to www.childandfamilycoaching.com.
Child and family coaching.
Yep, child and family coaching.
By the way, she's
So excited to chat with you. I know homework is a huge stress for a lot of parents. It was for me when I lived in Wisconsin with my son. He would come out with these like angry tangents of doing homework. And that's actually how I was as a kid too. I didn't want to come home and sit down, and after, you know, sitting all day long and then coming home and sitting down again and doing homework. and then stressing out the parents, stressing out, everybody involved basically. And, it was a struggle for my son until we moved to California.
Mm-hmm.
And in California, well, I should say in the district that I'm in San Diego, they don't do homework.
Nice.
So
yeah,
I don't have that stress. The only thing we do,
great.
yeah, the only thing we have is reading basically. So,
yeah,
and that's a struggle in itself to get them to read. But, I'm excited to hear what you have to say. Just as a starter, I asked people on Facebook what their struggles were.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised a little bit at what they said. Jody said, freaking Common Core math. How are we supposed to help them when we can't even understand the terms that they're using or how to do it? So that's a really good,
right.
That's a really good comment, Jody. So thank you. And Christy said, group projects, relying on other students to be just as reliable as your child is.
Mm-hmm.
So great questions. Let's kind of hit on Jody's question first. Common Core, freaking Common Core.
I know.
I love it.
I know. It was hard enough when we were in school, and now they've changed so many of the rules. If you can even remember how to do any of it. But the thing about homework is that, and then this is where a lot of grown-ups get tripped up. We think it's our homework, and it's not our homework. And it's really important that the kids do their own homework. And it's great, obviously, to answer a question or help support, but we don't have to actually know how to do this stuff. If your kids are really that stuck that they need so much extra teaching that we need to now learn Common Core math, then the teacher needs to know about that. And us sitting there with them, going through problem after problem after problem, can actually mask some spaces where their child is stuck and their teacher's not going to know. So instead of us freaking out about the fact that we don't know how to do Common Core math, if your child is really that stuck, email, no one calls anymore at all. Email the teacher and say, hey, listen, my child's super stuck. Can we make a meeting with you? Do you have anybody who can help tutor them and teach them the way that they need to learn? And are there any quick tips that maybe I could do to support them? And so that's really where I go when parents are freaking out about homework. If your child is that stuck, touch base with that teacher because they really need to know.
Good advice. And with my kid, and even like I mentioned myself too, I would become very angry and, just throw these huge temper tantrums, and my son did as well.
Right.
So how do you handle that?
I like to really put the ball in the child's court. So again, it's not our homework. And the more we nag and the more we bug, the more stressed out we become. And it becomes a horrible situation for everyone involved. So I do like to say, hey, listen, this is your work. I'm not going to fight you on this, but if you don't get it done, you can't move on to the fun things that you want to do later on in the evening. And also, and this one is such a tough one for a lot of my clients who I talk about homework with, have them go into school with their homework not done. And I know it sounds horrifying. It's like, I can't be that parent. I can't do that. But again, email the teacher and say, listen, my child was just not doing their homework and I don't want to fight about it. So I want to give them a real life consequence and a real life reaction for an action. So I know the homework's not done, but I'm sending them in and they have to now look at you and say, I didn't do my homework. And honestly, that teacher is going to be like, you are a rock star parent. Yeah.
Very good.
Like real world
Very
consequence.
good. I absolutely love that. I have done that actually. I really have. I did it today, actually. So that's so funny that you mentioned that. Well, I didn't do it on purpose. My son, who's 11 now, he didn't tell me that his PE clothes needed to be washed. So for whatever fluky reason, I put all of the clothes into the washer this morning before he left for school. And he comes down and he goes, I had PE. I have to wear those clothes. And I said, you've had them for 2 days. Why didn't you tell me that they were in there so I could wash them? So he's like, I'm going to lose 5 points. Well, it is what it is. It is what it is, son.
It is what it is. And that's where they really get to learn about responsibility. And that's where they learn the life lessons that they really need to learn. And it comes across so much better if we're not just screaming at them all the time, if they actually have to go out in the world and take responsibility for their choices and their actions. And we all make mistakes and mess up. It's okay. But then when we do, we get those reactions for actions as well.
Exactly. What do you think about the no homework? What are your thoughts about that?
I'm actually a big fan of no homework, especially for the younger grades. I think it's really important it's funny because I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine whose child is going into kindergarten. And I think, obviously reading with the family is so important, but they're sitting in chairs all day, so much more now than even when we were kids.
Yep.
And for them to have to come home and sit in a chair for 20, 30, 40, sometimes it's an hour or two.
Yep.
It's just too much. And so, they learned so much during the day. There have been so many studies that show that actually giving homework doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't nail in those new skills. It just creates a lot of stress. If someone happens to be really stuck at school, you want to send them home with 4 math problems to practice. Not a problem. It's not going to take that long. But I'm a real fan of letting kids be kids. And in the older grades, you can kind of start putting that in. So they just learn how to be responsible so that when they do get to college, they do know how to study or, write a paper. So those are important. But in the younger grades, it's just shown that it doesn't do anything.
Very interesting. I really do kind of worry about the transition into the upper grades. Let's say from middle school to high school, because there is such a shift in the homework. Right. And so that's kind of been a thing with us in our district is that, okay, well, they go from basically 0 homework to, a lot of it. And, right. And for a parent too, the other aspect is that we don't have that tangible in anymore and what they're working on in school. Right. So I feel like there's a disconnect. Like I really don't know what my son is learning. Yeah. Because of that reason.
I think that the communication still needs to be there, even if you don't send home homework. I think it is important for parents and teachers to have that dialogue of, okay, what are they doing? Where are they? And especially so that you don't go in, mid-year for the conferences and you're totally shocked at what your child knows or doesn't know. Mm-hmm. And so, that could be even a topic to bring up with the teachers and say, listen, no homework. Great. Thanks. But can we keep an open dialogue? I just want to make sure that I know where my child is, at in their kind of academic land here. And even at home, if you want to make the transition a little smoother, there can be things that as a family you guys do. Maybe you are reading a book together or your child's reading a book. And you can say, hey, why don't you write me, 1 page of why you loved this book so much. So you don't need to be the teacher, but you can kind of get them in the mood and practicing about how to write, how to put your thoughts together.
Ooh, so I love that.
Real life stuff.
That is truly amazing. That was awesome. I bet you everyone watching right now is going to go, yes, such a great idea.
And keeping it positive, it doesn't have to be, why did your main character do X, Y? Just what did you like about it? What made you go, yes? Or what didn't you like about it? Maybe they didn't like the book. Yeah.
I know my daughter would really take to that, but my son, he would flip me the bird. Mm-hmm.
And he's 11. No, absolutely. And if you are concerned, though, it could be something that you guys discuss. Like, listen, it's my job to get you ready for your next step. And honestly, I'm being a friend to you as well as your parent. And I'm doing you a solid because I don't want you to go into this super surprised. But why don't we shake it up a little bit? And why don't you write and tell me all the things, again, you didn't like about it? Because sometimes 11-year-olds might think that's more fun than being like, oh, I love this book because, or even if he really likes to read comic books or he really loves soccer or he watched football last night. Okay, just write a few things down that you thought were amazing about the game.
Right. And because that's getting their creative juices flowing too, because then they don't have, they're stepping outside of that box, with writing. So sometimes it's like a 5-paragraph essay kind of structure can get so monotonous and boring. that if you step outside of that paradigm and you teach them creative flowing writing, which is super fun, and getting that creative side of you out, Brandi, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Gave me chills. So what do you think with somebody that, you know, isn't in my district and someone who has a child with a heavy, heavy workload? I remember in kindergarten when Cole came home, he had a whole lot of homework 5 nights a week in kindergarten. Right. What should be the parents' role?
I think, and I'm probably going to say this a million times, but I really think that communication is the key. And especially if it's something that a bunch of you sort of are feeling like, hey, listen, I really respect you as a teacher and I really respect what you're doing. But a bunch of us are talking and it's taking our kindergartners an hour or 2 to do their homework. And that's kind of concerning us, and this is where we are. Is there any way we can open a dialogue about other ways to, you know, give them homework, or could there be less problems? Also, you can set a time limit on yourselves and say, listen, I'm comfortable with my kid doing a half an hour of homework. So we're going to sit down. We're going to get through as much as we can in a half an hour. And whatever we don't get done, me as the parent, I will write down, listen, we put a half an hour into this. I really can't put more than that in an evening. My 5, 6, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, it's just too much for us. So this is what they've done. They definitely showed me they understood the concept in each of the things that you showed or that you sent home. If this is a problem, please talk to me. But I think the communication needs to be there, because sometimes as the teacher, you don't realize either. Maybe you have someone that's new, or it's something that was, you know, handed down to them from their higher ups, and everybody needs to sort of talk together about what seems to sit right with everyone and feel good.
An issue that I've heard that happens a lot, and it also happened in my own family with both of my kids, that they're very hard on themselves. Mm-hmm. They get very stressed out when it comes time to taking a test. For instance, my daughter, she'll come home and she'll be like, I got 27 out of 31. And she's used to getting 31 out of 31. She's very hard on herself because she got a few wrong. So how do you handle that as a parent?
I like to say, so I'm a big fan of questions. Okay. And so I like to ask kids, because I know a lot of kids too that are just like, I can't do this, or this isn't good enough, or just say, okay, well, what's the worst thing about getting 27 out of 31? What's so terrible about this? What is bothering you? Well, I didn't get 31 and it's not perfect. Okay, are we striving for perfection, or are we just trying to learn a new subject? When I learn new things, I don't get it right away. You know, if I wanted to learn how to fly a plane, I'm not going to get in the plane and know how to fly it. Like, it's going to take time. So this is a new thing for you. You know, it's going to take a moment. What will make you feel better? So you got 27 out of 31 this time. What do you need to do to feel better about this? And that way they can start to make themselves feel better, realize that it's okay to make mistakes. One of the favorite things that I say at my school is, you know, mistakes are proof you're trying. And I saw it on a meme on Facebook and I printed it out. And we say it all the time. Mistakes are proof you're trying. And that's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect.
Mistakes are proof that you're trying.
Because sometimes when you try new things, you make mistakes, but at least you're trying. And it's okay, you know, it's okay to mess up. And I think it's also important as the grown-ups in their lives, point out sometimes when you make a mistake or you mess up. And, oh my goodness, I spelled that totally wrong. No idea how to spell that word. You know, sometimes even when you're reading books to kids, I read books about dinosaurs. I'm pretty good, but every once in a while, there's like a dinosaur, it's like 75 letters. And so even I have to sound it out. And I like to tell them, like, look, I'm pretty much 43 years old and I had to sound that word out. Yeah. We're still learning. We're all learning. We all make mistakes. We all mess up. It's okay.
And we're all at different levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about focus.
Yes.
Another thing that kids also struggle with is focusing at school and focusing after school for homework. How do you handle that?
I like things to be very specific and set up. Like, I know, you know, everyone's really busy, but flying by the seat of my pants does not work for me at all. And it doesn't really work for kids. So I like to talk with kids, because I always like to bring them into the conversation and say, okay, well, listen, where would you like to do homework? where it feels comfortable for you. And also as the parent, you should know your kid, if they're in, a quiet place, will they get it done or will they just, start doodling? But have it all set out and even write it down. Say, okay, listen, you love doing math at the table. You like doing it in the kitchen in case you want to ask a quick question. But maybe, you like reading on the couch. So you can do math here, reading here. And this is where you're going to do it. And this is how it's going to be done. Also making sure that all the materials are there. Because if there's any reason to get up, a kid will get up. And
Sure.
I'll get up as well, probably. If I'm
Right.
sitting at my desk too long, I'm like, I
Right.
probably need something that's not here. So you want everything that's there and available. And the phrase that I like to use when kids get distracted, kids of any age get distracted, I like to say, what's your job right now? What do you need to be doing? And notice the tone. It's not, what's your job right now? What do you need to be doing? It's not judgy. It's just like, hey, what's your job right now? And there's something about the fact that it's a job. It makes it a little empowering to them. And they go, oh, right. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm supposed to be doing my math homework and not looking at butterflies out the window. Butterflies are cool. Hard not to look at. But I really like that phrase. What's your job right now? What do you need to be doing?
Yeah.
And the tone is so important.
Let the kids tell you where they want to be.
Right. And if it's not working out, then you guys can have a talk about it and shake it up. But the thing is, when you bring your kids into the conversation, especially about their own lives, they feel really respected. And when they feel respected, then they respect you guys and us a lot more. And they're more willing to listen to us. And you do notice that some of that pushback falls away because kids just feel like they have no control over anything because we're always telling them what to do and how to do it. So if you kind of bring them into the conversation, it really feels empowering to them. And if it's not working, that's not a time for judgment or like, I told you so, that was a bad idea. It's just like, okay, this isn't working. How can we tweak this? We just have to remember that kids are people too. And we make mistakes, we slack off, we mess up, like we do the same stuff. And I think that when we can keep that in mind, we can remember that our kids they're just people too.
Let's go back to Facebook real quick from Melissa. She says, as our kids get older, the amount of homework seems to be a problem. Finding balance between school and family time is essential, and there needs to be a good understanding between the teacher and the parents in that regard. So you already talked about communication is key with the teacher, but finding balance between school time and family time. What's your advice for Melissa?
I think there's a lot that has to do with organization because you get all of that homework and you just look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And I just have to sit down and I have to just do it and here and there. If you can sit down with your kids and sort of map it out, I'm a huge fan of dry erase boards. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a dry erase calendar.
Yeah, I am too.
I have like 72 dry erase boards, keeping everything I need to do in check. It's important to, you can get a calendar that's a dry erase calendar for your kids and say, okay, well, different colors, different subjects. What's due when? What do you need to do today? What don't you need to do today? Because sometimes kids will feel like they have to get it all done in, 1 or 2 days. I have to do everything it's due. But it's not due. It's actually due 3 weeks from now. Let's baby step it so that you can get your work done on time, but also not stress yourself out and give yourself time to have fun. And, when you have a book report and you have 3 weeks to do it, don't wait for 3 weeks. Do a little bit each day. But if you can map it out and have it be really visual for kids, number one, it's less stressful for them. It's also less stressful for you guys and all the grown-ups in their lives. And it will all get done, but then you can add in that family fun time. I think when you can't see it, it just becomes just this mountain that's overwhelming. But if you break it down, you're like, oh, this is doable.
Especially if you have a lot of kids.
Yes.
And you're trying to juggle all of their stuff. That can be very trying. Melissa also mentioned, she said, also the heavy reliance on technology, sitting down and simply reading a book or writing a paper on actual paper seems to be a bit lost amongst all the apps.
Right.
So how do you handle the technology world? That kind of loses kids' focus as well.
Right.
That's probably hard for a teacher.
Yeah. And it is tough. I think that, and once you're on your computer, whether you're, starting out doing homework or not, you kind of wander over to Facebook or you look up, tree frogs and what they do, and you're kind of all over the place. I think that, again, that's a discussion to have with your kids. And you can say then, listen, being on the computer, it's a lot of responsibility. If I'm coming over and I walk by and I'm seeing that you're not working, instead you are on Facebook or you're wherever you are on Twitter and all sorts of things, then I can't give you so much freedom. So you're going to have to do your work wherever I am, because I need to make sure that you're staying focused. If you need a break, maybe you say that. Say, I need a break. I've been working for, 25 minutes on this. I need to get up and walk around. I want to check something. That's fine. But I think it is about trust. I think you do have to check in on them and make sure that they are focused on what they're doing. And if they can't handle that much freedom, then they can't have that much freedom.
Very good. I love it. Tammy says the balance on being involved versus overbearing. Does that kind of resonate? I asked her if she could elaborate, and she said, I have experienced some teachers want more involvement and some want less. When I feel the need to be more, I have gotten pushback. I'm still mama bear and take over, but I have questions sometimes if stepping back is it borderline hovering.
Right. So I think clarity is important. If your teachers do want you to be involved, it's kind of like, how much are you involved? And I always question, like, why? We have enough to do. Why do we have to be involved? And I think it's great to know what your kids are doing. Absolutely. I think it's great for you to talk it out with them, to be a sounding board. But when you're there at 2:00 in the morning finishing the volcano, it's just too much. When you're there having to be someone who glues everything on the poster, it's too much. The work should be something that your child can do. And if they can't, you can talk to the teacher about it. But I think that it's so important for kids to be responsible for their own work. And I don't know if that answers her question, but I think that that's sort of where the stand needs to be. Again, be a sounding board, be supportive, be someone who's there to kind of give a little direction, like, where can you find that resource? But if you're up writing the paper, it's too much. It's just too much.
Right. And I believe what she's also asking is, when the child comes home and she's super frustrated, that's when she steps in and feels like she has to defend her child.
Right.
And, and say, well, why is this happening? And then she feels like she's the overbearing parent, and it feels kind of heavy. And I don't know if that's exactly what Tammy's saying, but that's how I take it. And I appreciate your input. I know that everybody listening is going to appreciate your input. And hopefully you can come back and
absolutely,
we can do something else. So that would be fun.
That's a wrap, folks, on Back to School Month. September has come and gone, and our kids are now fully into school. And we're off to another month. In October, we are talking all about money fixes, so stay tuned for that on the Nikki Jencen Show. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Subscribe, and like, and I'll see you next week. Boom!
What are you doing? You better get to work.
We're gonna twerk. I mean, get to work. It's fun.